legendary listeners, and welcome to a new episode of the Legendary Ladies podcast. This week is a duo episode between me, Amy, and Morgan.
Hello.
Kat is probably off starting a Kickstarter business or, knee
At a,
deep into one of her new comic books. Is she at a convention? Oh, she's at
I think
Emerald.
she's at a convention, yeah. I was going to say, or at a convention, which is the most likely scenario.
Yeah, so she's currently off kicking the best kind of butt, and so we're so proud of her. So we decided that this week we were going to pick an episode to watch, a TV episode.
Yeah.
Now, usually Morgan and I pick something like period drama or My Lady Jane or
Romancy.
romance. I was like, hey, the new Suits show comes out. It's got
I'm
Stephen Amell.
I'm kind of
It
mad that
ties
Kat
into-
got to miss this.
Oh, I know, because yeah, we were like, it's got Stephen Amell. It's got a little bit
Arrowverse
of Arrow tie-in,
tie-in.
right? Well, we
Well.
watched the new Suits LA pilot, and I gotta tell you, we watched it,
It was there, and I watched it, and I experienced it.
and
This is dead silence. Yeah,
that's-
wow. That was something I watched.
Moving
How
on.
about
No.
that? And the
Um,
episode is over. Thank you for joining us. No, I think maybe to start with, I'm interested. Have you seen the original Suits, Amy?
Yes, and I have
Okay.
to tell you, the original. Have you?
So that's interesting. I have actually not seen the original Suits. I missed.
Oh, this is gonna be
during-
interesting for us.
Yeah. So I remember when it was on and everybody was into it, and I was like, I should really watch that. And then I didn't. And then when the summer of Suits happened like 2 or 3 years ago, when I discovered it on Netflix and was like, hell yeah, Suits.
Uh-huh. It
I
blew
was
up.
like, maybe this is my time to finally jump on the Suits train. But guess what? I also did. I was like,
Did
yeah, this will be fun. I think I actually downloaded a bunch of Suits for like a long plane ride, and then I just slept through the whole plane ride. So I've kind of missed Suits. I did think about today watching the Suits pilot after the Suits LA pilot.
Oh.
And I think that would have been very funny. But I didn't have the time to do it. But I did have a
Honestly-
moment where I was like, do I have the time to like squeeze in the Suits pilot?
We should have done that instead. We should have watched this episode, been like, this wasn't great. So let's watch the actual Suits pilot, because the original Suits pilot is spectacular. It is not only a good TV episode, it is a good pilot. It is a very well done pilot. It introduces characters, it brings you with a hook, it interests you in the world, you get different variety of characters. So many characters are immediately memorable. The only character in this pilot that's memorable is Stephen Amell, and that's because he's Stephen Amell. I can't dissociate Oliver Queen from him. It took me a good half an episode before I finally was able to be like, okay, I think I've stopped seeing Oliver Queen. Like, it was a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I will also say I don't feel like and this is not a knock on Stephen Amell, but I don't feel like he's doing anything different than he was doing in Arrow almost at all. He's basically
That's one of the
just
notes I have.
Oliver Queen, a lawyer now.
Oliver Queen, attorney at law.
Attorney at law, yes.
I wrote that down because it's difficult. It's difficult because he does have, when he kind of enters those more tender moments, his character does have more endearing personality traits. Like when the moments with his brother, who, spoiler alert's not there, that was the only marginally interesting twist in the whole show. But you rolled your eyes, which means you don't like it.
It was the twist, but I feel like it was a twist that would like ultimately has no impact, I would assume, on the rest of the show.
Yeah,
It felt
unless
like
he's like actively bipolar or schizophrenic, then it's interesting.
yes, unless there's something like that, but that's not the vibe I was getting. And so it's like, okay, so I guess this character we thought was real in the pilot isn't real. Like, is that character gonna stick around? Is like the ghost of his
Yeah.
brother gonna just be in the background of scenes? And if so, why? What is that adding to this show about
It's making him
entertainment lawyers?
human. Yeah. So
You could have
we'll
just
go
made
back
the
to-
character less of a jerk so that they didn't need a dead brother.
Well, okay, so here's what's interesting. So let's go back to the Suits pilot thing.
Yeah.
You are gonna. So I watched basically all of Suits.
Nice.
Suits had two main characters, Harvey Specter and Mike. Oh my God, what's Mike's last name? It's Mike. His name is Mike.
And
I don't even remember
Mike.
Mike's. It was just Mike. But Harvey Specter is always, "Hi, I'm Harvey Specter." Like that's how he introduces himself. Anyway, so
I
Harvey
only
and
know about this
Mike.
because Spencer Hastings from Pretty Little Liars married the actor who plays Mike. So the actress who plays
Yes.
Spencer, yes.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
he is Mr. Troyan Balsario to me.
yeah.
And so I was like, that's
They're great.
mostly what I know of him from. I know that he was on Suits, but I didn't watch any Suits. So I'm just like, good for you, sir. Well done.
So I don't want to spoil too much because I think you're going to really enjoy the pilot, and I don't want to ruin the pilot for
Yeah.
you. But it follows Mike and Harvey and their relationship as an associate who is kind of lower down and a partner lawyer. So basically, an associate's an apprentice lawyer, right? And then there's a couple other memorable main characters: the head of the firm, Jessica Pearson, kind of the antagonist lawyer, Lewis Litt, and Harvey's super fantastic, super amazing secretary, Donna Paulson. So there's these five main characters who are just super memorable right off the bat. They're super interesting, but the biggest thing to note about Harvey Specter is he's kind of abrasive. He's kind of
Mhm.
an abrasive, for me, money, 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 I'm the best, I win all the things kind of a
Yeah.
character. So this character that Stephen Amell plays is just a really bad carbon copy of it. It's like AI took Harvey Specter, tried to write it through a different guise and said we need to make him more human, because there's actually moments when I'm rewatching Suits, because the first
Mhm.
3 or 4 seasons when Mike and Harvey are still the main characters, at one point Mike's actor leaves.
Yeah.
Oh, and Rachel, I totally forgot Rachel. I'm sorry, there's 6 main characters. How could I forget
Which
Rachel?
one's Meghan Markle?
Rachel. That's why it's embarrassing,
Which one's the
because
princess?
she's a great character. People who are listening to this are like, could you
How dare
forget
you
Rachel?
forget Her
She
Highness
is
Meghan
Her
Markle?
Highness, Her Grace. um, but Harvey's character is rather abrasive, and for the first few episodes, you actually kind of are like, I don't think I like this guy. But Mike is the foil to Harvey. Harvey is super abrasive, me, myself, and I, money, money, money. Not even money, money, money. He's just kind of, it's more of win, win, win. I
Mhm.
want to win all the things. Mike is like, why would we win when that hurts somebody? Can't we help win, like, but being better people about it? And he's a real down to earth kind of guy. He takes a bike to work kind of a guy. Um, they don't have a foil to their main kind of character in this. And I guess they tried with the one guy who then ends up leaving, but
Who
he
then
leaves.
Yeah, so I think I'll go through the plot of the pilot really quick just in case
Yes.
somebody hasn't, like, watched the Suits LA pilot or, forgot it immediately upon turning it off, much as
You
I did.
don't really need to. And that's before we get too much farther, I just want to say I genuinely loved Suits. I mean, I loved Suits. I brought my brother, and I especially, I bought him a messenger bag that was identical to the one that Mike has in the show, and it was one of his favorite Christmas gifts I've ever gotten him.
Okay, so
Like,
you're like a legit Suits
I
fan,
was a
like,
legit Suits fan, and I went back and I watched it all during the Suits summer. Like, I am
the
a
summer of
big
Suits.
Suits fan. I frequently rewatch the first season of Suits because it's that good. So it pains me that this was not, and it's sad because I could tell by the trailer. I knew it
Oh,
wasn't going to be. I knew right
yeah,
off the bat it wasn't going to cut it.
when they
So,
said they were doing, like, Suits LA, I was like, "Oh, that could be fun," and then, like, I started to see some stuff coming out about it. I think I watched a little of the trailer too, and I was like, I don't
yeah.
know. It doesn't seem
So
so fun."
I feel bad ragging on this pilot. I really do, and I feel like it's going to be a lot of ragging. But I don't have a lot of good stuff to say about it. So if you guys are a big Suits LA fan and you really liked it, apologies. This is not going to be the podcast for you. I really don't like ragging on actors. I don't like ragging on writing, especially I like we like having our thoughtful criticisms, and I like thinking about, oh, what if they did this and what if they had done that. But there's just a lot in this that they needed to scrap the whole thing and start over. Like
Yeah,
there's no
this
fixing it.
I think my big critique of it, and I'll get to it sort of maybe more in depth after we talk about, like, what happened in it, but it feels like 3 different shows. It feels like at least 2 different
Hmm.
shows, and it's
Hmm.
kinda wild how the tone changes. So basically what happens in the pilot, just a quick run through, is Stephen Amell is the main character. His name is Ted. We start with him in like 2010 in New York, where he's like working on some mob case. The house blows up. He almost like the person dies. There's all this stuff. We see him talking to his brother. And then we flash to the future where he's now in LA. He's not out of New York. He's in New York. He was a prosecutor. In LA, he is working at this firm, and he's like a entertainment lawyer, and he is a big shot, and he is working with his friend who is the criminal defense side of the equation, and they're about to go through a merger with, I believe, his the firm of his ex-girlfriend. Sure.
That's what I can
Gild
gather, but
that
I'll be
lily.
honest, wasn't clear.
Gild
Another
the
big thought
lily.
in my
Why
head.
not? Why not make it more complicated? So he and his friend, they establish really quickly, definitely an endearing feature of this character, that he thinks that everybody who has ever been charged with a crime should go to jail. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
regardless, I guess he's like, everyone's guilty and everyone should be in jail. And I was like,
Yeah.
cool, you seem fun. So he doesn't get along. He has kind of a contentious relationship with his partner, who is the criminal defense side, because he's like, how can you defend criminals? And I was like, cool, I love this. So then, shocking, about halfway, maybe not even halfway through the pilot, his friend betrays him, curse his sudden yet inevitable betrayal, and takes a bunch of his coworkers and does the merger with his ex-girlfriend's firm instead of him. Sacre bleu, betrayal. There's there's a couple of other characters. Honestly, they're just throwing everything at us. There are two junior characters that both want to be the head of the entertainment division,
Yeah.
I
Erica
believe.
and Rick, I believe.
Erica
They're
and
both
Rick.
vying for promotion.
They're vying for the promotion. Erica obviously has a fun line like, "If I was a man, would you would you be nicer to me?" And it's like, yeah, I
And
mean, probably.
Stephen Amell's character literally says, "I mean, I wouldn't know because I'm not because
Yeah,
you're not." And I was like,
he's like, "Oh, would I know?" And I was like, "I do. You're a jerk. Of course you would." Uh, and then the other guy is like, "Think of your conscience." So those are those two characters.
"Yeah." And then
And then towards
go
the
ahead. Sorry.
end, Rick goes off with the other side of the betrayal, with the criminal defense side, because he's like, "You were mean about a coworker," and that was the straw that broke my back. And you're like, honestly, none of these relationships are established enough for me to care at this point.
Right?
But what a fun thing to throw at me in a pilot. What were you gonna say, Amy?
They also throw in, and this was only because in Suits it was a big deal. They throw in an associate, and the associate is
Yes.
the girl with the haircut, and she's like, "I
What a
really want
haircut.
a job. I'm endearing, and I'm gonna fight for this job, but I don't have the courage." And it's just there's not a single memorable character. The most memorable character is the brother.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
and this whole
so,
time, Ted's character's going through some stuff with his dad.
oh yes, they, just in case there wasn't enough already happening in this, again, first episode of this television show, his dad is also dying, and he's like, I have daddy issues. Like, basically every person he meets, he's like, I'm a jerk because of my daddy issues. And it's like, that's a weird thing to kind of introduce yourself to somebody, but cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then oh, what was the actor's name? There's an older actor who comes in. He's like, I really,
Oh,
to get me apart, John Amos or something like that.
yeah,
I'm
something like that.
maybe wrong about the actor's name, but
That
he's
sounds
like
right.
I recognized him when he popped up. He's playing himself, which is very funny. And then he's just like, to get the quality of this pilot, he's randomly in Stephen Amell's office one night. It seems like it's like 8 o'clock. I don't know. I would be a little creeped out that there was randomly somebody in there at their office hours, but Stephen Amell seems chill with it. And then he's like, son, you got to let go of your anger with your dad. And I was like, didn't you want him to get you apart? Like, I don't, what are you doing here, sir? You're so much better than this. So then Stephen Amell like goes to his dying father's bedside. His dying father, by the way, is played by another Arrowverse guy. It's oh,
That's
what's
where I
his name?
recognized him.
I think he played like Reverse Flash or something. I
Oh,
could be wrong. Yeah,
oh yes, yes.
but he's under old
Teddy,
age.
Teddy Sears. Is it Teddy
Yes,
Sears?
I
Yeah,
don't know. I don't know.
maybe.
Maybe it's
No, not Teddy Sears. That doesn't sound
Will
right.
something or other.
But
Um,
he's played by Thawne. Thawne,
Fawn. That's what it is. Yes,
who was
thank
in
you.
Legends. Gosh,
Yes,
I could
who
have.
is Matt
Oh,
Lester?
there it is.
Yes.
Wow, we
So
did
he's
so good at that.
we got there. But he's under a lot of old age makeup, which is very funny because I gotta say, I don't know how old Stephen Amell is, and I don't know how old Matt Lester is, but they're not old enough to be father and son. That's for sure. If you told me they were the same age, I would believe you. So that just makes it more funny to me. So then he goes to his dying father's bedside, and he's like, kind of like, I don't forgive you for like getting our getting my brother killed. And you're like, his brother he's been talking to this whole time?
This whole time, and I still don't understand how his brother got killed. None of that makes sense to me. I have a theory, but it's not worth it. I guess, like, it sounds like the mobster, he probably was like, you come to my house and we'll deal with this. And I don't know. It wasn't clear. Somehow the
Yeah.
bad guy killed his brother, not the dad. I don't, it's unclear.
It wasn't clear. Yeah, it wasn't clear at all. Also, my husband was sort of half watching with me while I was watching this. And initially he was like, "Oh, was that the guy that his father got killed? Was that the guy in the first scene of the show? Was that Eddie?" And I was like, I don't know. I don't remember that guy's name, maybe. And then, of course, when we get to the end and it's like the reveal is that his brother is
Yeah.
dead, we were both like, oh, it's his brother.
I do remember there was one point where I was like, when there was a flashback of the two brothers and the brother was still the same age. I was like, how come they have a
Yes.
different kid playing Stephen Amell's character, but they don't have a different kid for Eddie? I was like, that seems weird. And so looking back, that was actually a clever idea that they did
Yeah.
in like trying to help aid the audience along. Um,
Oh,
so that's, I
I
mean, that's
forgot a whole
basically the plot.
character, by the way. I forgot a whole character, which is Maggie Grace's character, who
The
is
secretary.
who it, no is the she is these forgot two characters. That's how overloaded this pilot is. He has a secretary, but she doesn't really do much of anything in the pilot that makes her stand out. But then there's also Maggie Grace's character, who is the lawyer who does like pro bono work for
Oh,
the firm,
yeah.
who's like
Who
independently wealthy.
who I would argue is the only person. This is gonna sound really mean. I'm not gonna say it like that. I think
Perfect.
she's a great actress. I think her character sold. I would argue her character, in my opinion, was the only character that sold for me. Nothing else, no other character hit home for me. I think hers did. Even the flirtation stuff at the end, that felt like Suits. That was the only, there was that one scene where he comes in and he's like, so you work for me, and then she goes, I don't really, why do you defend them? And then as she's leaving, she's kind of flirting. She's like, I dress like this so people don't see me coming. I don't like dress like this out of our office hours. And he's like, yeah, she doesn't work for me. That is a Harvey Specter moment. That is the only scene that felt like it was actually Suits, which is weird because, and Suits has that kind of fun, romancy, play-like vibe,
Yeah.
and they're really good at it. Um, it just, you can't sell it like the characters in Suits do. So anyway, I personally think her character was the most intriguing character in the whole episode show, and we got two scenes with her.
Yeah, I agree. That character I was really interested in. I thought she felt different than the other characters. All the other I think the problem one of the problems is that all the characters have a certain like sameness to them. And they all have like
Yes.
the same they also all have the same motivations and like goals. And it's
Yeah.
all like, I want to be the big head guy here. No, I want to be the big head guy here. No, I want to be. And like even his his like arguments with his partner who has like honestly such a beard. It's just an intense beard. All I could look at was the beard. I was like,
The
wow,
beard. The
that
Nick
beard's
Offerman beard.
Yes, I was like, "That beard is bearding. Good for you, sir." But even them, they're, like, arguing over, like, who's the cooler like, who's the better lawyer, who's the more
Hmm.
powerful lawyer, like, I'm mad at you because you insulted me and you were a jerk, and I never let that go. But it's like, that's what every scene is, and that's what every
Yeah.
character interaction is. Every character interaction is, like, somebody trying to claw over top of somebody else for, like, a position, and I
Which,
don't know, like, that's why the Maggie Grace character stood out to me, because she's
hmm.
literally the only character in it that's just like, "Yeah, good luck with what you guys have got going
Yeah.
on. I'm kinda busy."
Now, on its surface, that sentence you said where it's kind of like the dog eat dog, they're trying to claw their way ahead of each other. On its surface, you could argue that that describes the original Suits to an extent.
Mhm.
Harvey Specter and his foil, Lewis Litt, they were very contentious for much of the series and really in the first season or two, where they were clawing their way to see who's gonna make senior partner first. And a lot of times they did things where you're like, I think I hate both of these characters. But then something happens that makes you endear them to the characters. And so it's got that sort of a vibe. So, on its surface, that sentence would describe Suits, but it doesn't successfully translate to Suits Los Angeles. And I think that's because, well, I don't. I think it's because there's a lack of characterization for these characters, and it tries too hard. This episode did not feel like a pilot. This felt like season 7, episode 11.
Yes. It's
It,
interesting. After I watched the pilot, I was like, how what did I just watch and why do I feel like this about it? So I went and like looked up a review. I looked up, I think it was like Alan Sepinwall's review in Rolling Stone. I think this was his review because I read like one or two. And he made the point that like the things that happen in the pilot would have been better suited for like a mid-season or a season finale or a season
yeah,
2 even, when the characters are established, when there are stakes, when you're like, "Oh no, Beardy and Stephen Amell can't be fighting. We love them." Like
yeah,
at that, oh no,
that's a great
they're
point.
losing Rick. We love Rick. How could he choose Beardy over Stephen Amell, right? Like when there's established relationships, something as big as a shakeup of like this character is leaving the firm, that has big stakes, that feels important. When it happens halfway through a pilot where I'm like, I can't remember Beardy's name,
Yeah.
I just don't. I mean, I care as much as I'm watching the show and it is happening, but I don't have
Mm-hmm.
any emotional investment in it. It seemed like they were just like really trying to throw everything at this pilot. They're like, "It's interesting, right?" And I'm like, "I'm overwhelmed."
That's nail on the head because I couldn't place it. I couldn't figure out exactly why this frustrated me so much, but that's it. It's there's a lack of relationships. I think Kat would have absolutely ripped into this pilot. I think she would have been so bored and frustrated with it. I actually don't think she would have a lot to say. She'd be like, "This sucked."
Yeah.
Um, Something else that I think for me this was surprising. I went the whole episode thinking to myself, this feels like someone wrote a spec lawyer script and sold it, and Peacock NBC said, let's make it Suits.
So, Amy, it's so interesting that you say that because I read an article. I think I read it was the New York Times review of it. And so I could be wrong because I read this a couple hours ago and I didn't like commit it to memory. But I'm pretty sure that the writer said that the initial conception of this show was going to be a like show where they were like entertainment agents or something, and then they like pivoted to be Suits. So
Interesting because it's written by Aaron Korsh, who is the writer and showrunner of OG Suits. So this same writer wrote both pilots. However, I recall, now I'm going to look it up. So Suits
yeah, I'm
pilot
gonna see if I
writer,
can if I left
because
it
there's
up in a tab.
actually a second writer. Hold on.
Oh.
Oh, I looked up the wrong Suits LA. There's a second writer. Da, 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 da. Okay, here we go. So this is the Television Academy article. Um, okay, well, here we go. This is from Aaron Korsh himself.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, I was gonna say, I also found the New York Times review. It said,
mhm.
created by the Suits mastermind Aaron Korsh, the show that became Suits LA was initially about a talent agent. It was adapted into a Suits spinoff after the original blew up on Netflix. This is perhaps why the series is so fuzzy about what distinguishes the role of entertainment lawyers from those of agents and managers.
Yep. And there's this is a direct quote from Aaron Korsh where he says, "When I originally wrote this pilot, it was not meant to be in the Suits universe. It could not have been more clear if they tried. It
They were like,
was,
"What's popular right now?
yeah. Now
Suits is popular. You made Suits. But why don't what if we just pivoted this thing that you were creating, made him a lawyer and slapped Suits on it?" And it's like anything to get
it's
it made. Sure.
to get it made, and it does a disservice to it. Honestly, they should have kept it the way it was. I think I think about shows where that kind of stuff has happened. We've seen that happen before, but I remember if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, you know I'm obsessed with and will never stop talking about my love for the TV show 12 Monkeys. 12 Monkeys was not originally meant to be a 12 Monkeys connection to the old movie. It
Oh,
was originally written as a time travel script, and when the writers were submitting it, the feedback they were getting is this basically feels like 12 Monkeys. And so they were like, oh, well, we can maybe modify it a little bit to make it work a little bit better with that. But the pilot is so effective on its own that you don't need to have any sort of way, shape, or form into 12 Monkeys to enjoy it. You don't need to know anything about the Bruce Willis 12 Monkeys to enjoy the TV show. I think the only thing that would have made me come to this pilot is the name, and it failed to live up to that
yeah.
pretty
I
effectively.
Yeah, I think that was like when I was reading some of the reviews, as somebody who didn't watch Suits, but kind of had like a feel for the vibe. As I was watching Suits LA, I was like, this is not the vibe I ever got from like the little bit I've seen of Suits or like the little bit I know about Suits. This feels very like dour, honestly. Like Suits seemed like a very kind of upbeat show. Like, yes, they've got their case of the week and everybody's kind of snippy, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought Suits was kind of known for being sort of fun and like bantery and like, there was like office romances and it was like just a very like a light show. And this show feels not light. They're
No,
throwing so much at you at the pilot. Like Stephen Amell is really doing like Oliver Queen. You've let down this city
every
kind
time he
of.
said the word city, I couldn't handle it. I actually, and this doesn't happen to me a lot. I'm usually pretty good with dissociating characters from actors and different TV show characters. I actually was having a lot of trouble with this.
Yeah.
I think it's because there's no voice distinction. He has done nothing with his voice, his affect, or even the way that he plays um like that hard-hitting moment versus the softer tender moments. It is so I can't associate it, and maybe that's because Arrow was such a huge part of our lives. Like maybe Morgan, you and I are not able to do that because we were so
To
invested
be
in Arrow.
fair, I however only watched 2 seasons of Arrow. So I
Really?
didn't
And
watch
you
a bunch of and I'm not, I'm not here to criticize anybody's acting. I will say I don't think he's playing it any differently than he played
mm-hmm.
Oliver Queen. And I think if you had showed me a couple of clips with no context and you told me it was an episode of Arrow, I would believe you.
Yeah. And
I think he's playing it exactly like he would play Oliver Queen. I don't think that there's a lot of variation. Like just like Oliver Queen, this character is rich and he's sad a lot and he's like kind of he's got kind of an attitude and he's kind of like high on his own supply. I think the character itself is basically just Oliver Queen as a lawyer, and so I
yeah.
think that that's like, as somebody who has what I mean, I think if you come in with no Arrow baggage, then yeah, maybe this is not going to bother you. But if you've watched any amount of Arrow, it really does feel like Okay, it's just Oliver Queen.
I think the other challenge for me too is that his physicality and his body movements for this rich character the same as Oliver Queen's. The way that he carries his shoulders, but it's kind of hunched a little bit. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. The way that he carries his body when he plays these characters is he doesn't have his shoulders back. And I part of me thinks that like I mean, I have that problem because of my neck problems. I wonder if there is a
Mhm.
physicality to that because of all of the muscle work that he had to do for
Oh,
Arrow,
certainly
where
it could
literally
be.
it literally tightens you up. But the way that he carries his character in this episode is the same as I'm expecting to see Oliver Queen. And so for me, it's a little bit of a body movement thing and this side eye that he does when he's like, thinking and the way that he opens his mouth. So there's a lot of physicality things that I would like to see him over the course of this season, assuming I watch more, which I don't think I will. Um, I would like to see him develop his own physicality and mannerisms for this character as opposed to Oliver Queen. Now, I know he's done other work. I haven't seen his other work.
Yeah, I haven't
That's
seen the wrestling show that he
yeah,
did.
and that's just not my cup of tea. That's why.
Yeah,
But
no, I had no interest in I'm not a wrestling person. I don't, pay attention to that. I don't know anything about it. I watched like a season of Glow. I don't even think I watched the second season, and that was a very good show. So
yeah,
it's just not really for me. But also like they're not doing themselves any Arrow favors either with like the very setup of this pilot is very similar to like the setup of Arrow of like,
yeah.
most of the seasons of Arrow where, things are happening in the present day and then we're flashing back to Stephen Amell's past. It's like, yeah, that's how Arrow worked too. Like why would you set it up this way that's so similar to like something else that this actor has done before?
I think that was another major challenge that I had with this pilot is I don't think that flashbacks in a pilot have been used as ineffectively as in this pilot.
No.
The I'm genuinely not kidding. Within 30 seconds, Morgan, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah,
And that was
yeah.
just immediate vibes. I was like, I'm not into this.
I was
And
I was telling you this story before we hopped on, but I
yeah,
had watched like 5 minutes of this pilot, and I try not to judge things on like the first, 5
same,
minutes
same.
because that's crazy. But my husband came in and he was like, "Oh, you watching Suits LA? Like I'll watch it with you." And I turned and I said, "I don't think you need to. This doesn't seem like it's going to be very good." And so, but I went back to the beginning. We rewatched it. We got like 5 minutes in, and he was like, "Oh, this isn't very good." So, like, I do feel like the first 5 minutes of this pilot are not strong.
They're not strong. They don't have a hook. And you're going to see the pilot on the original Suits is the exact opposite. It is the hookiest hook you've ever met. You will meet three characters. You'll meet Donna, Harvey, and Mike within a few minutes, and you will immediately like and be interested in all three of them. And right away, you'll be like, oh, this is so great. This is so unique. This is fascinating. I am here for it. There is no hook in this show. What's the hook? It's called
Yeah.
Suits.
Yeah,
There's zero hook.
yeah, I mean, I also think I think I said this before, but I really do think that they're throwing too much at you in a
Yeah.
pilot because we have the flashbacks to his mob case. We have his brother who's not dead, it turns out at the end, or who is dead,
Is
it turns
dead.
out at the end,
Yeah.
but we thought he was alive. We have his dying father.
And
We have
somehow all three of those are connected in some way,
yeah,
shape, or form.
exactly. We have his ex-girlfriend, merging the firm with him, a thing I forgot until I had to summarize the episode. We have
Yep.
the split between his firm and his,
Beardy.
old partner's firm. Then we have Erica and Rick and their, like, fight for dominance
Competition.
at competition, and then we have the, like, as you mentioned, the assistant who is also
The associate.
trying
Yeah.
yeah, who's trying to become an associate or she's trying to
She is an
something.
associate. So when they start out, I learned this from Suits.
You're practically a
They
lawyer.
are a lawyer. You're an associate lawyer, and then you turn
Mhm.
into a partner lawyer, and then you get senior partner, and then you could get head of the firm. So basically,
Ah,
associates are the grunt works, and paralegals are not lawyers. They're even
yeah.
lower. But basically, this associate's like, I need to make it farther. And then on top of everything, you also have the secretary. And I would argue that the relationship between Harvey Specter and Donna Paulson, Harvey and his secretary in
Mhm.
Suits, was the tied for the most pivotal relationship between Harvey and Mike. So they're trying to do that. I can see them trying, and every time they tried, I got the ick because they kept trying to
This is
be like,
wrong.
oh yeah, this is clearly Stephen Amell's character and his secretary. They're really close because she comes in and is like, you should go see your dad. I've been listening in on your conversations. I can read your moods. But there's nothing endearing about her. I don't remember her name. Whereas,
Yeah, when you
yeah,
mentioned oh, yeah, and the secretary character, remember I was like, "Oh, I completely forgot about her."
there's
Also,
too much.
like, not to be like this, but I feel like the ex-girlfriend character also had a certain like, a similar look to the secretary character, like brunette,
Yeah, that's fair.
where I was like, "Wait, that's a different person, that's not the secretary," right? Like, it's hard when you're throwing this much at a person in the first episode. Like, if it was just a character thing, I would probably be able to tell them apart, but because they each character had, like, 2 lines in the whole episode and there's so much else going on, I was like, "I can't possibly pay attention to this too."
You know what else is interesting? Are we supposed to classify this as a procedural? Because what I
Yeah.
know that we
Oh,
have
I just
the
realized
main
I completely left off the procedural element of this pilot because that's like 7th level of this pilot
yes.
is that Beardy, I'm so sorry, I just can't remember
I
his
just
name.
don't remember his name.
I don't care.
Stuart.
Stuart, yes, Stuart. So, Stuart, the guy with the magnificent beard, he is going to represent this. He's like a producer or something
Producer, I think. Yeah.
who maybe killed his. I guess killed should be in the air quotes. Who maybe killed his partner, his like I don't know husband or boyfriend or something. He
It
got
might have actually
shot.
been his like studio partner
Oh, it
or
could have
his
been
work
his
partner.
studio partner.
Could
I wasn't sure if it
unclear.
was romantic. Yeah, it's true. They use the term partner, and we're all
Mm-hmm.
talking about a lot of like business stuff, but it could have been a partner in terms of like romantic partner.
We have no idea.
This is unclear. He says that his partner committed suicide, but he has like gun residue on. So it's like Stephen Amell's character is like, I can't believe that you would take this case, blah blah blah. He obviously did it. Everybody is guilty. Everyone should go to jail. And his partner is like, I think that you should say it was self-defense because his partner kind of thinks that this guy did it. And this guy goes to Stephen Amell and is like, I need you to defend me because you think I'm innocent. For some reason, even though Stephen
It's
Amell thinks that everybody is guilty, he's like, no, this guy I feel like is innocent.
and this is the
And that's the
problem.
procedural aspect of this show. But the fact that neither of us remembered this until like basically the end of our episode talking about it means that it wasn't very strong.
And this is the problem is that a procedural part of the episode, the big bad of an Arrow episode or the big case of a Suits episode, that should ground the episode. There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing to ground this episode. What's the big deal? The firm's falling apart? But like you said, Morgan, we have no reason to even care about that. We don't care about the characters. We're trying to understand this world and we're expecting Suits. Even if you're not expecting Suits, you're expecting a, doctor, lawyer, cop procedural
Yes.
episode. Even the most bare, basic episode should have something grounding it on a procedural level, and we don't have that. We have 2 cases, 3 really, technically, if you want to consider the girl at the beginning who got signed by Warner Brothers.
Oh
Who
yeah.
again, I'm confused. I genuinely don't know. I thought that was an agent's job.
Yes,
I
I
don't
also
understand.
again and then when we're talking about the I think it was I'm gonna look up who it was. I think it was John Amos. Yeah. It was John Amos where he goes in, he's like, I want you to help me get a part. I traditionally I don't feel like lawyers do that.
Correct. Well, and they bring that up. The Rick
Yeah.
character brings that up. He says that's not our job. He's like, "Oh, come on. You can't tell me that you can't make a call and get the audition." And I was like, "I don't know."
I mean,
Truly?
maybe what are you gonna be like?
Yeah.
I'll do you if you don't get on the audition.
It
Like, what's
just
happening here?
it just lacked consistency. It lacked something to ground it. it used flashbacks so inefficiently that it actually made things worse and more confusing. What show? Oh, that's my Alexa reminding me to get renter's insurance.
It's important.
um what show starts with a flashback just because they wanted a literal big bang? That should have been the final moment in the show. It just dropped the ball on almost everything, and I truly think that I was saddened that this was the pilot that came out. I would, we see things as a viewer. I would be curious to see how much NBC changed. I would be curious to see how much the executive changed. I would be curious to see if the other writer, who I'm really sorry, I had it earlier and I can't find it now, who co-wrote the pilot. I wonder what sort of show we were looking at before NBC said let's slap suits on it.
I know.
I
You know what? I'm interested. I would have loved to have read the pilot for the agent show that
as
this
written.
began as, because I do think that like the idea of lawyers, or I mean agents, lawyers, whatever, like the LA entertainment aspect of it could be fun.
Mhm.
In fact, I would argue it should be fun. The
Mhm.
fact that this pilot has such a like a dour, sort of downer tone is really at odds with the subject matter of like what they are supposed to be working on,
Yeah.
which is like, getting
Yeah.
somebody a pay raise in their superhero movie. Like,
Yeah.
why are we all so depressed about this?
And we're ragging on it, but I would be curious to be a fly on the wall behind the scenes, because we're sitting here going, yeah, these are the things that we didn't like, and for all we know, the people in the writers room are like, yep, that was, we also didn't like that.
It's
We
possible that
also
that's what
didn't want it to
the
be
work
like
was
that.
like, what if
Yeah,
we
that
had
then
some flashbacks? And you're like,
yeah,
"Well,
or
why would we do that?"
exactly, or they're like, we need to make him feel more human, and they're like, him personifying his dead brother isn't enough. No, no, we need some flashbacks to show that he's a morally gray character, and they're like, him
He's kind of a
talking to
jerk.
women the way he does,
Yeah,
that's not
seriously.
enough.
That doesn't get us
Like,
anywhere.
yeah, it's frustrating because, the more that I get into this kind of world and know people in the world, I I have this deep kind of sorrow in it, in that I bet you there can't be a writer, a whole writer's room that looked at this pilot and was like, god damn, we made the best pilot in the world. I feel like there's got to be so much that they just had to give and were not able to keep, that they wanted. They couldn't tell the story that they wanted, and I kind of want to give, the writers the benefit of the doubt and saying that they probably tried, and that this was what the network did, and that this was what it took it. And I genuinely would be absolutely floored if this gets a second season.
I would be surprised too. It doesn't seem like a show that is super clear on like what it is or like what
It's
it
not
wants to
built to
be.
last.
I don't know. Like I came out of that pilot and I was like, what was that show that I just watched? And I read, I think the New York Times review, I think it was by Margaret Lyons that I was reading. She had watched the first three and she said by the third installment it was starting to find its footing. But I think she said like you can't expect people to like, hang in there for, two
Yeah.
episodes that are like this before getting to like a third where you're like, maybe.
Now, I will say, this podcast originally started out as the
That's
Legends of
true.
Tomorrow podcast,
That's
and we
true.
only stuck around for season 1 of Legends because of its Arrowverse tie-in, and then look how good season 2 went. But we happen to know that a lot of that came from the ability of them to grow over getting a little bit more freedom to write more, the way that they wanted to. So maybe that's gonna happen, but in today's day and age,
I feel like,
like,
yeah,
I don't
I feel
think
like the
Suits is a big enough
streaming
franchise to count it.
I feel like the streaming age is kind of bad for that kind of stuff where a
Mm-hmm.
show starts off rocky and then really finds its footing in like the second half of the first season or in season 2 or something like that because in for like a lot of these streaming shows, they're so short. They have so few episodes. Like I don't know how many episodes Suits LA is going to have, but I would be shocked if it's like more than 12 because nothing gets like
Yeah.
Nothing gets like a full
It got a full season.
22 episodes?
I didn't actually look up
Full
how many
season
episodes.
or
I
Suits
think,
LA?
if I recall, Suits on USA, at least for the first few seasons, I'm gonna look it up right now. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure Suits was a summer show.
Okay,
So
so it
it
was like a
was,
15,
yeah,
12, 13, something like that.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's like the most you can expect
yeah,
a
12
TV show
episodes
to
in
get
season 1. Yeah,
anymore, which
yeah,
is
and I
crazy. I
recalled
mean,
that.
I miss the days of
Yeah, it came out
like
in June.
filler episodes and things
I
like that where characters just talk to each other for a whole episode, went on a wacky adventure. Nobody goes on wacky
Oh,
adventures when you only have 8 episodes.
you should watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds, because I gotta tell you, in under 12 episodes, they go on a number of wacky adventures. I
That's
still
impressive.
think I need you to watch 12 Monkeys. I need you to watch Strange New Worlds, because those are things that are not normally in your well, 12 Monkeys is time travel. But I don't feel like you would be like, I'm gonna watch Star Trek. Strange New Worlds,
No.
excellent. Is so good. You will love Strange New Worlds almost right away. And here's a great example. The pilot episode, which is a spin-off, it is by nature, it's a Star Trek episode. It's a spin-off, still manages to get you to like all the characters by having a very clear and consistent grounded plot that then lets you explore the characters, know the characters, respect the characters, want to get to know more about the characters, and feel grounded in a world which is a spin-off of a world that already exists. Like, it's just so good, and this unfortunately just was not.
Yeah, like, it, like, can be done well. Like, we've seen
Oh,
it be
yeah.
done well. Like, as you mentioned, I wouldn't say Legends is a great example of
No,
that,
Legends is not a good example.
but I think that you gave some good examples. Like, we've
Yeah.
watched enough shows that have had spin-offs that have been good spin-offs. This isn't even I would argue, I don't even know if I would count this as a spin-off since there are
No.
no characters from the original in this.
Which I know that Gabrielle Mocht is supposed to come and be. So the whole episode I was waiting for him to show up, and I was like, where is he? What's going
Yeah,
on?
I guess he's gonna show up at some point in the season,
I think
but
the next episode. So I'm mildly tempted to watch the next episode just for him, because I love his character. And honestly, all I want to know is if he name drops Donna, because oh no, I'm not gonna spoil it for you. I just want to
Oh.
see if he name drops a character, because I
Uh-huh.
want to know how that character is doing. And oh, and
Mm.
on top of everything, there are actual Suits characters living in Los Angeles, and
Oh.
they don't mention them, they don't bring them up, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I get that they're trying to establish these new sets of characters and
But
things
if
like
you're
that.
gonna spin off,
But if it's a spin-off, like, it has to have some relation to the original, or else,
mm-hmm,
again, you've just slapped Suits on the LA show you were
yep,
actually trying to make. I don't know. It just felt very disjointed. It didn't feel like it really knew what it wanted to be. I don't know how it's gonna do. I didn't come out of that pilot being like, okay, that wasn't 100%, but I really like these characters and I wanna get to know them better. I just came out of that pilot going
yeah,
like, "Wow, that was trying to do a lot."
yeah. Yeah, it was too much. I was overwhelmed by it, and I think I will probably go to episode 2, scroll forward, find the moments with Harvey Specter, watch that scene, and be like, all right, my itch has been scratched. Oh,
I'm
that's a
good.
terrible
Now I'm
phrase. I
good.
never want to say that phrase again. That was terrible. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. Long story short, should you watch the Suits LA pilot? No.
No, don't do it.
I won't even
Don't do it.
argue like, oh, if you liked this or liked that. No. Sorry.
But you know what? What it did, I came out of that Suits LA pilot and I thought to myself, I think I should watch Suits, like the original
Yes,
Suits.
please do.
I
You
was
will
like,
love it.
I came out of that not interested at all in continuing into the world of Suits LA, but I was like, I'm sure Suits has got to have been better than this.
Suits is so good. I honestly would love to we should do a pilot pod on it, because it's
We should
so
do a pilot.
entertaining.
We should do a Suits pilot pod.
It's so good. But even honestly, I don't even if we don't record anything on it, you should just watch it for the sheer enjoyment of it. Like, I genuinely want to go back and watch the first like 15 minutes right now, because the first 15 minutes are banging. They're so good, Morgan.
And I also like that it's like so long. It's got so many seasons. Like
yeah,
sometimes I get like an analysis paralysis of like what I should watch next when I'm like trying to watch something by myself.
Suits is a great choice right now,
I'll be
Morgan.
watching that for the rest of
Mike
my
would
life. It's like
also
9 seasons.
Mike would love Suits.
So
He
Mike has
really
actually
would.
seen Suits.
Oh.
I'm the only one who's missed out on the Suits
Oh.
train.
He'll watch the pilot with you. It's that good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's worth a rewatch. So I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. Morgan, where can people find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Mojotastic on most places. You can also find me as a co-host on Supergirl Radio, where we have been reading, I think it's All-Star Superman. That sounds right to me. Yes, it is indeed All Star Superman, which we just started All Star Superman, which is like a famous Superman story. Apparently, it kind of inspired or is an inspiration for the Superman movie that's coming up. And it's a really popular one. So we have just started. So you can join us on our read along for All Star Superman. What about you, Amy?
Excuse me.
That was great timing.
So good. I couldn't even mute it. I was like, there it is. There's the chortle. You guys can find me on Instagram, Amy_hip. That's Amy_HYP. I will also be at WonderCon in the last weekend of March. So those of you who are in Anaheim or visiting WonderCon, I will be there. Come chat. I'm going to be repping Hero Within again. So I'll be there all weekend selling our super cool Star Trek jackets. But I love to catch up with people. I'll be hanging out in the nearby hotel areas afterwards. So come say hello. And then maybe going to a Ren Fair in April, which I'm just really excited about.
Ooh, Ren Fairs.
I have
so
a corset that I ordered several years ago from Pendragon Costumes, and I have yet to wear it. Morgan.
You gotta do it.
I'm so excited. I tried it on the other day. I was like, this looks so good.
I look amazing.
And it's like it was back when I had expendable income, Morgan. It was not a cheap custom corset. It was a like $350 corset.
Whoa! But now you'll have it forever.
Oh, it's so nice. It's amazing. It was handmade. They sent it to me like it took like 2 months to get to me. And honestly, I'm the kind of person, we're a small company, the longer it takes, honestly, I'm okay with that because that means you've got a bunch of orders coming in and you're working hard for it.
It's legit. Like again, it's not like you need to buy like a new one every other year because it's falling apart because it's high quality. Yeah, exactly. It's high quality.
By the way,
just
nobody
buy one
from Shein.
Don't
Please
buy
ever.
from there.
They
it's
support
terrible
labor practices. This is my good lesson for the day.
Speaking of labor practices are bad. Also, it's gonna disintegrate right off your body.
Oh yeah, immediately. If you would like another lesson in wildlife, you should join our Patreon. Because if you go on our Patreon, Morgan and I have a special Patreon episode that we just recorded that we're going to post, all about the famous Big Bear Eagles, Jackie and Shadow, who are currently raising 2, maybe 3 chicks in their nest. So if you guys are interested
about eagles.
I went into full animal educator mode.
She did like a show and tell. She showed me like footage of the eagles and I was like, I love them.
They're so good. They're so calming. Watching 44 minutes of Jackie and Shadow has more character development than the entire Suits Los Angeles pilot.
I ship it. I love them now.
It's brutal, but it's so true. I feel bad that we were so negative, but I gotta tell you, this was a tough one.
usually we have like, sometimes we're like a little bit more positive, somebody's a little bit more negative, but every now and then the stars align and we both just truly hate something. I don't like it. And so we're sorry. This was super for us.
Really sorry. But we warned you at the beginning of the episodes. If you stuck with us, it's probably because you agree. Okay, we're gonna wrap things up. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, you can find us on Twitter, the legends_podcast. Email us, thelegendaryladies@gmail.com. If you disagree, comment on the YouTube video. Message us. Let us know. Tell us why we're wrong. We love listening. We love thoughtful criticism of our criticism. If you message back and just say we're wrong, that doesn't count. You need to cite your sources and use complete sentences and tell us why we were wrong. I love that. If you completely agree, tell us why. We love the comments. We do read them. We don't always respond to them because
we don't always
honestly,
respond.
We're crazy busy. We do so much, but we really, really love reading your stuff. It's just so much fun for us and so entertaining. Leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Join us on Patreon if you want to hear all about Jackie and Shadow the Eagles and get
Yay.
full Amy educator State Park mode, because it was a lot of fun. I even put up like the observation sheets, and I'm talking about the flying squirrels who were involved
I
and
was
how long it takes for these
riveted.
eggs to incubate. Yeah, no, I'm very entertaining when it comes to wildlife education.
Amy kind of knows what she's talking about when it comes to that.
So thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of our listeners. We will be back next week with an episode.
Yes,
Have a wonderful week and stay legendary.